Australia has a long history of settlement, colonization, and conquest that has shaped its unique languages. The country as we know it was established in 1901, and before this it was a collection of disconnected colonies with independent governance, cultures, and languages. To this day, more than 50 Australian Indigenous languages and Creoles are spoken, and before European colonization, over 250 languages with various dialects existed. About 21% of Australians reported speaking a language other than English at home, and Australian Indigenous languages are spoken by less than 1% of the total population. Today, approximately 73% of Australians speak only English, and the most common languages other than English are Mandarin, Arabic, Cantonese, Vietnamese, Italian, and Greek. Given the rich variation of language represented in this country, it is no wonder that their speech is so distinct. However, what truly shaped the way English in particular is spoken in Australia is the establishment of a penal colony. New South Wales, a state of Southeast Asia, was founded by the British as a penal colony in 1788. Over the next 80 years, more than 160,000 convicts were transported to Australia from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, in lieu of being given the death penalty. Because of this, individuals speaking different dialects from all over England and Ireland were thrown together into one area and forced to communicate. This caused what is known as dialectal leveling, or the reduction of variation among dialects of the same language, that occurs in multi-dialectal settings. This and the continuing influence of immigration since the end of the penal colonies are what helped most in crafting Australian English. Thanks to those British petty criminals, when you think of Australian English, you think of the rich, bold accents in which it is spoken with. There are three main varieties of Australian English dialects: broad, general, and cultivated. The broad Australian accent is the most recognizable around the world and stereotypically perceived as the Australian accent, and is also the origin of many Australian idioms. Mainly people in rural areas speak this variation, and other variations commonly refer to those speakers as Queenslanders.
Yeah, mate, yeah, we've got our conservation message onto the big screen, onto the cinema, and by crikey, it's having some impact too.
The general Australian accent is the most commonly spoken variation in Australia and used by people living in metropolitan areas. It uses English and British terms more than any other variation.
So Rick, our mutual friend, says, Jimmy wants to meet you and you can go over to his apartment and da-da-da-da, and I'm single, and I'm like, okay, yeah, cool.
Wait, what?
Finally, we have the cultivated Australian accent that has been rapidly falling out of use for a while now. It is similar to the standard English accent in Britain and can be easily mistaken for it.
One of the things the Labour Party did not do during the campaign was to highlight the extent to which Tony Abbott is capable of changing his mind on important elements of policy.
While you may think these vibrant accents are universally adored, studies actually show that individuals have faced poor treatment in the American workforce due to their non-native way of speaking. One study in particular, conducted with Australian social workers who work in America, shares the account of multiple individuals who felt discriminated against and addressed in a way that questions their professionality and their qualifications. One of the participants of the study reported that during phone calls on behalf of their clients, they are often spoken to as second-class citizens and made to feel unprofessional. Many Australians have actually claimed to try and change their accent in order to sound more American, and Australian school children try to change their dialects depending on where they are to avoid bullying. These accounts show that the desire to change an accent is therefore not just motivated by issues of intelligibility, but also by a perceived pressure to conform to the style speeches of the dominant language group. Besides obvious entitlism and othering, another reason why American English speakers may have frustration with an Australian English speaker is the vast differences in pronunciation. The accent of the majority of Australians has characteristics often associated with Cockney, especially in the quality of the vowels and diphthongs that occur in the words say, so, beat, boot, hi, and how. Because an Australian's pronunciation of hay may register on an American as high, or basin as bison, these systematic differences have been the source of misunderstandings between speakers of general Australian and speakers of other national varieties. Major differences in the way vowels are pronounced are shown in these examples, and while some look like ours and sound different, such as their E, where ours is pronounced like the A in mate, and theirs is pronounced like the E in dress, and some are not really used as much in American English, mostly the additional diphthongs like the capital I schwa in hia and the O epsilon in goat. In addition to vastly different pronunciation, Australian English speakers also implement a wide array of vocabulary that is unique. When describing someone who is mischievous and rowdy, we Americans might call that person a hoodlum or a prankster, while Aussies might call them a larrikin. I asked my good friend from Australia to compare and contrast terms she uses versus the terms I use for commonly known words, phrases, or objects. Eraser.
Rubber.
French fries.
Chips or chippies.
Cotton candy.
Fairy floss.
Trunk.
Boot.
Flip-flops.
Thongs.
Gas station.
Servo or service station, or sometimes petrol station.
Afternoon.
Arvo.
Drunk.
Pissed or sloshed or tanked.
Windshield.
Windscreen.
Bell peppers.
Capsicum.
Cilantro.
Coriander.
With all these distinctions in mind, I'd like to point out that Alice uses a general Australian accent, which uses the most American and British terms of any variation. An example of this is her use of the term bathroom instead of toilet, which is a term generally used by Aussies on the east side of the continent, where that broader accent is more likely to be used. The history and use of Australian English is extremely complex, but through this small glimpse into the world, hopefully a stronger initial understanding of the origin and quality of the unique dialect of English can be obtained.